What's going on? Welcome. See, there's a few people here already. Give me a thumbs up in chat if you can hear me okay and you can hear the music okay. So, thanks again for hanging out earlier and stream earlier today. We're back again for the 3D modeling version. It's gonna be a short one. I just kind of want to take you through what I have to do to make a complete shirt, make the color variations for it, make sure it's properly weight painted and UV mapped and all that stuff. And I know that was a lot of technical terms, but in case some Blender people hop in, I'm sure they'll know what I'm talking about, so I'm just gonna talk technical anyway, try to make this a semi-tutorial, but really I'm just chilling and hanging out. Hope you all are having a good night. So this is this project I'm already neck deep in, about halfway through. So I already have a lot of things set up, but basically for this I have a base person model here, as you can see. This piece is white because I have it colored that way, but these are the main parts here. You have the base feet, the base head, the base torso, or base pants, or should be called legs. Hell, I'll say base legs. Yeah, so there's that, and as you can see, they're separated by parts here. The head's separate. And for this reason, it's separate for this reason because when we move the character into Unity, which is the game engine, basically, we need to have it so that the pieces of clothing are actually the body too, and that where the skin's showing is only where the skin is showing is that's where an actual body is, rather than having another mesh wrapped in clothing mesh, which is what you can do, but when it comes to, you can do that as well, I mean, but when it comes to animating and things start bending and stretching and moving, basically that's when you start running into problems. So to model it correctly for Unity for the game team, basically we have to make it all one mesh, and I'll show you how I do that and still make it look like as if it's wearing clothing. So this is one of like 5 popular ways to like do clothing. And probably one of 100, because that's just the way Blender works. There's just a lot of ways you can do the same exact thing. Some shorter, some faster, but yeah. So I don't have a lot of time to like explain how I got to this point in the program, so I'm just gonna kind of work and talk as I go. If you already are a Blender user, of course you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you're not, I'm sure you'll be a bit lost on some of the things that I'm talking about, but that's fine. So what I've done is every time I need to make a new piece of clothing, so to give you an example here, I can hide this and you see that that part of the body disappears. That's a t-shirt. And here's some ones I've done already. Here's like a polo, okay. Sleeveless. The UV map shouldn't be like that. I can fix that, but that's an easy fix. You know, like a tummy shirt. And in this particular game that we're making a unisex character. So it's like more depends on the hairstyle you pick and the clothes you pick is going to determine the gender. So anyway, I've already gone ahead and I've copied my torso down here, and the way I've done that is basically taking this base torso and I just duplicate it, and then I rehide this one, and then I move it down here, and now we have this. And I'm gonna basically, I haven't decided what shirt I want to make next. So I'm into the long sleeves now, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna do another collared sleeve shirt. And I always have references on the side here, especially for this kind of stuff, because I don't memorize every kind of style of shirt in the world, and I personally had to look up some styles of shirts. So I'm gonna kind of do like the polo version long sleeve here. So it's like it has the buttons and the collar. It'll be basically like this shirt, you know, but long sleeve instead. And this one I ran into some little things that I learned to do better. So I'm gonna call this I don't know what would this shirt be called. It's a polo shirt. Okay, so a long sleeve polo. And one thing to keep a good habit of is being organized in these programs. Let me tell you, it gets real busy real quick with all the different files and everything. So long sleeve polo base model. I'm gonna turn down the music a little bit on my end because I can't hear myself talk. Okay, so now contrary to another method which you take a other mesh and you essentially wrap it around this one, what we do is I'm gonna take it into edit mode, which is another way of viewing the individual pieces of this mesh. Every mesh is broken down into vertices, edges, and faces. And you have 3 modes here. If you go to vertice mode, you can see I can use grab and move individual vertices. If I go to edge mode, I can grab just an edge and move individual edges. And face mode, I can grab faces and grab individual faces. So I'm going to reset all that movement there that I just did. And what I'm going to do to make clothing is I'm going to go into face mode here. And for now, I'm going to get into solid mode, which is just another type of rendering in the viewport. And basically, I like this mode because you can see things better and edges better, and it helps to make things neater. Anyway, so to make a long sleeve shirt, basically what I do is I highlight the faces that I want on the body to make the clothing, because the body already provides a very nice contour, and you can go ahead manually and wrap this whole body and make it right, but it's a little bit longer of a process. And when you're making low poly models like this, speed and time is money, because you got to make as much as you can as fast as you can. So I want the sleeve to go to about there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start highlighting the shirt, and basically to speed things up, I'm gonna press 1 to go into front view here. I'm gonna deselect with Alt A, and I'm gonna press Alt Z, which puts me into I forget exactly what it's called, X-ray mode. And X-ray mode allows me to select through the character, so I don't have to rotate around the character. It's basically, I'm gonna select all the faces that I want the shirt to be, and not where I don't want it to be. So that's enough. I'm gonna go out of X-ray mode, and I'm gonna zoom in here and kind of get the ones I missed and tighten it up, because sometimes that happens here. And it looks like we're good for the most part. I think it's selected properly. Okay. Cool. Alright. Sorry, I had to check something. Alright, so now when you have everything selected, basically, or the faces selected that you want, you just Shift D to duplicate, and you can see I pretty much already have a shirt, right? The way you just copy those faces. But instead of moving anywhere, I'm just going to right click. What right clicking does, it'll just reset where the duplicate is, where it was. So it's exactly on top of that shirt. And I'm going to press P for separate and separate selection. Okay. Now what this has gone and done now is it's taken those faces I've selected and it's created a brand new object outside of edit mode. Now if you see here, if I hide the copy, I'm going to be left. Oh, I'm sorry, I messed up here. So go back in edit mode here. I'm gonna undo really quick. I actually did another method. I did an extra one that I didn't have to do. Basically, so go back a couple steps. Rather than duplicating, which is when you want to separate it and add and do like another copy of another shirt. I'm sorry, let me start over. When you duplicate it when you want the shirt to be on top of the skin. How I explained earlier, the reason why we're not duplicating is because we want the shirt and the body to be the same model. And basically to do that, rather than you just erase the duplicate step. Just erase the duplicate step. P to separate. And you can see the hands now are separate from this model here. And they're their own thing, and I can turn them on and off, basically. There's something else turned on here. I'm trying to find where I have it on. Okay. So once we have this separate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a solidify modifier and then a subdivision surface modifier. A solidify modifier is literally going to add thickness to what I just ripped off this shirt. So if you look, I can move this slider and it will thicken the shirt, either going in or going out, depending on negative or positive value in this field here. So I am going to put it to around there where I feel like it's happy and where I'm happy, and then kind of going with the similar thicknesses with my other shirts. Somewhere around there. Okay. And now I'm going to minimize that modifier, and I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier. And I'm sorry, the music has stopped playing here. Let me reactivate that music. It was only a 10-song playlist, that one I picked, apparently. Let's do this one. Okay. Mesh. And you can apply these modifiers to permanently affect that mesh and add the effects to it. But what's cool about what Blender does is you can go into edit mode and you can select these two little boxes right here. And what this will do is it will wrap the grid around the modifier effect accordingly. If I have it off, you'll see that these lines aren't quite flush with the mesh, and that's because this button, basically, it's called adjust edit cage to modifier result, and that's exactly what it's doing. That wire is the edit cage, and that's what you grab with the tools to modify the mesh. So I just like when the edit cage is wrapped around the mesh, because I can see what I'm doing more. That's how I like to work. So I'm gonna go to vertice mode. This is how I've been doing this, and I just select one at a time. And also something else to mention is there's this really handy tool in Blender called mirror mode, and in some modes it's automatic. Sometimes you have to manually apply it. In edit mode, in this current version, it just has it there for you already. So you can click X here and turn it on and off, and it should move the other one on the other side. And you can see it'll mirror my movements there. And that'll save a lot of time. And what I'll do is I'll kind of just manually go around and just kind of feel it out. And the thing is, I know this model. I built this model perfectly symmetrical. So because of that, I know that I'm safe. That like if I move something on this side, it's gonna look the same on the other side. There's some cases where that's not gonna happen. So I'm just kind of adjusting these, zooming out, checking it out. And there's just something, I just like modeling with the subdivision surface modifier because there's just something satisfying to it. It's almost like sculpt mode, but it's different. It's like edit. It's like if edit and sculpt mode had a baby. Anyway, so I'm moving around and basically just making sure that this shirt is over the edge to where you can't see it. I'm pretty happy with that. Raise that a little bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing with the wrists. A nice quick hotkey. If your camera gets all out of whack, you can select a vertice, and you can press the full stop key on your numpad, and it will zoom into your selection, and then it will kind of home the camera around that selection. Because what happens is the camera can become scaled globally, and then it'll like be moving way too fast when you're working on these macro levels, and that's why I like to zero it out. So in this case, I'm actually going to come out and I'm going to drag the hands into the shirt instead of the shirt over the hands, because right now I kind of like the sleeve length already, so I want to keep it there. So same thing, I'm just going to come into edit mode, and then I'm just going to grab these vertices, and I'm just going to grab them and just slowly work them into the sleeve here. Sometimes, so the thing you'll find in Blender, and I mean, I only use Blender, I haven't been in many other 3D programs, but things can just straight up bug. And it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, it just means that the program bugs, and it happens. One of the bugs I find is that mirror mode will just not work. I think what it has to do with is editing a mesh, or separating a mesh like I am, when it was previously already in mirror mode. So I think it just breaks it, but I don't know if that's exactly why it's breaking. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna go check the other side. It might have mirrored. See, here we go. Here's an example. It did not, the mirror did not work with this hand, but you can see that it worked with the shirt. Why that is, I don't know, because you can see it's turned down here. If you really wanted to make mirrors work with the hand though, or the mirror modifier, you could go add one manually and set it up by placing your world origin in the center of your object. So you'd have to just turn on edit origin, and then you'd move the origin in between both of your hands, and that way, because the program mirrors wherever your origin is. So wherever that is, that's where it's going to fold the piece of paper symmetrically. That's I'm pretty happy with that. So once that's done, I'm gonna come to the neck here and just adjust this a little bit, because I just don't like how it's kind of clipping into his neck. I just like it to look a little bit neater. And so yeah, looking pretty good there. This is a nice simple shirt. Okay. Cool. Something like that. Pretty pretty happy with that. All right, now I'm gonna take out the knife tool, and I'm going to basically draw. So the knife tool, you can create new. So there's this other nice fancy button called Auto Merge Vertices, and basically when vertices get within a certain distance of each other, uh, the body in certain objects. Oh, what's that? Oh, you know what? I had a random I had a random face selected. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that. There we go. Unhide. And basically I am going to move this up here. Like that. It's like pretty much already looks like a color, huh? Just needs some tweaking. I'm gonna bring it into edit mode. I'm gonna bring it into vertices here. And I'm gonna make this more of a point. Same thing here. And let me tell you, I'm no fashion designer, so I definitely had to look up clothes. And these are real simple. See, in this case, the mirror isn't working either. So I guess that's what it must be. If it must be something that already has the mirror modifier on it. If you separate it, then it breaks it when you go back into edit mode. Okay. Pretty happy with that. Now we gotta get sort of a the buttons going here. And if I were to be honest, I think these gonna come a little bit closer. I'm gonna go press 1 on the numpad for front view, and that'll really zero me out for a perfect front view. Now, why isn't this letting me move it? I'm gonna turn off mirror mode. Maybe that's... so mirror mode was on in a weird way, but it wasn't working properly. So the clipping aspect of mirror mode was working, but the mirroring part wasn't. Interesting. There we go. I'm gonna bring these in just slightly to like there. Alright. In the same way, I'm gonna go back to the shirt. And basically the buttons are just this little strip down the front. Back into edge mode, press K. And just going to cut straight to like here. Just like that. The knife tool you can do so many things with. It's a very, very useful tool. You can get carried away with the knife tool sometimes and make some accidental strange topology. So you gotta be careful of that, but overall it's a very, very, very useful tool. You can also make strange non-planar faces where you'll have a buggy face that is impossible because there's not an edge helping. And there's ways to fix that too. There's ways to fix everything. That's for sure. Okay, so in the same way, I'm gonna go into face mode. And grab these faces here. I'm going to duplicate, right click, P to separate, selection, exit out. Select my strip there. And what's nice about chopping up the clothes this way, which I forgot to mention too, is the pieces that you cut off of it, they automatically retain the 2 modifiers that I put on the first piece of clothing that I started making these pieces off of. And I thought that was very useful, which is awesome because, you know, it already comes out like as this blob, this nicely rounded blob. You know, and if I unclick these modifiers, it doesn't do anything for some reason. Well, anyway, that's what happens. So I'm gonna reset that position and just drag it out a little bit. Front view. I'm gonna move it up. And so normally So there's like a high poly version of making clothing where you can take it into sculpt mode, which is a mode I won't be getting to today unless I have to. But basically, you can create seams and stuff when stuff's really high poly with the crease tool. But in this case, because it's low poly clothing, I'm gonna kind of like fake the seams by just insetting other meshes into other ones. Because basically, on a polo shirt, or the way that the shirt is, it's cut here in the middle, and this is buttoned up, right? But this side, excuse me, this side of the clothing is actually attached to the shirt. It's not like actually a lump of cloth that's just like sewed on top. So I have to sort of fake that. Hey, what's up, Clint? You're watching the origins of where all your transmog comes from, right here. So basically, once I have that, I'm just looking at my reference here really fast. There's another little nub at the bottom, which is basically where it sews in. So to fake this look, which is what you find doing, what you find doing a lot in low poly is like faking stuff. So I'm gonna come look on it right on like this, and I'm just gonna so here's what I mean by origins. See this little orange dot? That's your origin of whatever mesh you have selected. So if I was to select my collar I just made, that's its origin too, which is in a bad spot, and I'm about to fix that too. If I select the shirt, the origin's down here. The pants, origin down there. The origin is basically the object's center, but even more accurately, it's the way the program reads the center of the object. So as you can see, if I was to rotate this shirt, it's not rotating on its own axis. It's rotating on the origin's axis. So what's cool is a handy shortcut that I had to find eventually, because this happens a lot, where your origins get in all sort of wacky places. Is basically you just simply have the mesh selected, you right click, and there's this little menu here that says set origin, and you can set it to a lot of different locations, but one of the best locations is to the geometry. And when you set the origin to the geometry, it will automatically place the dot perfectly in the center of your mesh, which is great. So going back to what I was doing, now it will rotate on its own axis. Nice. So I'm going to rotate it like this slightly, and then I'm just kind of inset it into, I rotated it a little too much, like that. Cool. Now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to do Control R for one of my favorite tools, which is called the looped cut, which it'll automatically loop cut around your mesh. And it only works cutting through quad-like polygons. I forget the actual term. You have triangular and then square, and basically the loop cut tool can only cut and read around perfectly square polygons, not triangular ones. Anyway, put that there. I press GG, no pun intended. There's a hotkey called GG, and it's called shear, as I said earlier. It will shear along these edges. So if I just press G once, it allows me to freely move the mesh, right? If I press GG twice, or G twice, it will slide along these edges. It's a really useful tool for just being more specific. So I'm basically just going to slide that down like that, just to create more square edges there. Once I do that, I'm going to go into face mode, and I'm going to select these two faces here. And then I'm going to duplicate, P, or right click P, separate, and that'll bring me out the new object as usual. Now I'm just going to raise. Oh, it's interesting. It's thinner than I thought it would be. Well, here's what I'll do. I'll scale. Oh, origin's in a weird spot, so I'm going to set the origin to geometry. G, S, and then double tap Z for the local origin. And you can see I will scale it like so. I'm going to bring it out. And there's this little sort of knuckle at the bottom there on this shirt I'm looking at particularly. So I'm just going to do that. And we'll combine, this is all going to be in one mesh eventually, and you'll see how that plays out. we're not too far off. Got to make the buttons now. And I think I need to rotate on this side a bit. And I got to reset the origin to the geometry again. Rotate. Move out there. Program looks pretty wild. Yeah, dude, this program can literally do anything. It's fucking, it's crazy, dude. Personally, I don't like how the modifiers are making this piece look, so I'm just gonna take the modifiers off. Actually, I'm going to take the subdivision one off, and what that'll do is it'll stop rounding it like that for me. And actually, you know what? The other thing you can do is instead of taking the subdivision surface slider off, you can just make it simple, which it will still add more geometry, but it won't round it off. For the Catmull Clark style is the rounded style. So I'm going to do the simple, and I'm going to put the render to 1 because I only want it to divide it once. Basically, the more you divide this, the more this goes up, the smoother and smoother that'll get. And once you get it past about 5, it starts getting ridiculous. You don't really need this little blob to be made of 7 million triangles. You don't want to crash your game because of one button on your shirt, right? So you got to keep it as low poly as possible. Anyway, simple. And then I'm going to G scale on the X axis, so it'll only scale this way. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to G scale on the Y axis. Just get it like that. Okay. It's gotten a bit wonky on me, so I'm going to go into edit mode. Oops. And I'm going to go into edge mode, and I'm going to select these 2 edges here. And I'm just going to... Oh, that's not quite reacting how I want it. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to come back out into object mode, and I'm going to apply these 2 modifiers. Now, basically, applying a modifier just like sets in stone its effects. So now you can see that this is actually showing what that modifier was doing, but now it's literal. It's actually what it did. So I'm going to select the edges here by holding Alt-Shift. And coming to a perfect side view, I am going to hold G and just straighten that out. And actually, I'm realizing I needed to select these 2. A handy hotkey is Edge Loop Select. So if you want to just select a loop of edges around an object, you hold Alt. And typically, if you want to keep adding them, like I just did, you hold Alt-Shift, because just like in Windows, if you want to select multiple files, you hold Shift. That's one nice thing about Blender, is it carries over a lot of those similar languages there. I almost don't mind it's looking a little bit strange. Now why is... I know what I'm doing. I actually should have done this in face mode. Similarly, you have edge face, or loop face selector. Something like that. You see what it does. Same function, just faces instead of edges. I'm going to press C for my circle select, color that in. I'm going to go to the side, and now I'm going to do that. And I'm going to rotate. Alright, now I'm going to grab vertice mode, and I'm just going to grab these 4 vertices on top, and I'm going to bring them in. Pretty happy with that. Maybe grab that one, bring it up a little bit, round it off with that one. Some tweaks. Now it's raised a little bit too high off of the paper, or the mesh, so I'm going to, because can you tell I'm still in 2D? I said paper. Just going to lower that down. And actually, I'm thinking I should have selected these 4 edges too. And I'll lower that down, like so. I'm going to make sure that's above though. And actually, I'll lower that down, and then I'm going to deselect with Alt-A. 1 for vertice mode, and then I'm going to pull that one back up, as well as that one. There we go. Same thing on this side. I'm going to kind of select these several vertices here. And I'm just gonna, oops, drag it in a little bit. Same on this side. Yeah, you'll find, you know, some little pieces of your model will take a little bit more tender loving care than others. A little more time. And I don't mind spending a little more time on these parts. And I'm just gonna seal the deal here. And make this where's my vertice in there? I know there's one hiding. There he is. Sometimes you just gotta add a new one. And once again, here's the knife tool coming in handy. Now I can just grab that middle vertice and just pull it out. And you know, all this detail work for what's you're gonna be looking at this from here, you know? But I like when things look clean. I'm gonna fix the other side too here real quick. Oops. Oops. Tell you think World of Warcraft has a lot of hotkeys. Ha! That's nothing compared to this. That's a bit high reaching. Okay. Isolation mode, so I can find the hidden vertice, come back. Isolation mode, by the way, is a / or question mark button, whatever you prefer to call it. And here's a case where I gotta create some new geometry, so I'm gonna cut. And now I have a new vertice to grab there. I'm gonna just select that one. And just bring that out. Just like that. I'm gonna grab that one, bring that one out. Let's see. Oh, here's another thing to teach you about. So sometimes when you zoom too close to a mesh, that'll happen. All it is if you press N to bring up your tools on this side here, or I don't know what you call it. There's probably some name for it. Quick menu. Because I know this is your tools. T is to hide your tools, but N brings out this menu. However, in this menu, if you go to View, you have something called Clip Start. If you turn this all the way down, you'll see that that will be fixed. It will allow you to zoom much, much closer. The smallest value it lets you go is 0.001, and yes, you can keep going to the point where it will clip again, but I find that I don't need to work much closer than this. But that's normally how you fix that. I need to add more geometry here. Pull that out, that's looking good. I think I'm gonna need a cross cut here, and that should do it. I'll cut to that guy. And like that. I like it. I'm happy with that. Cool, good enough. Okay, so now I'm gonna fix the top here because it's looking a little out of place. I'm gonna press full stop on the numpad to like kind of lock my camera view onto the object I have selected. And going to just take a quick glance at my photo reference again. Okay. So what happens is these lift up a little bit. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some geometry. I'm gonna grab this vertice and lift up this collar a little bit here, sort of like that. Just give it a little bit more dimension, because this strip thing here ends up being sort of tucked underneath. Now, a great tool, which I don't need to use right now, but I'll show you, is it's called proportional editing. mode. And so before you press your G key, which is just basically to move, G is just the default hotkey in Blender to move. So you press O, and that little button will highlight up there. You see that? When that button is on, it's called proportional editing. Basically, what it will do is when you go into move mode, this circle will now appear around your cursor, which you can adjust the size of with your mouse wheel. This basically acts like a invisible sphere of influence that will grab other vertices around your main vertex. And you can see that the bigger the circle of influence, the more vertices will be affected by your main vertex. So as you can see, with the circle that small, it's not really affecting that one. But the bigger I go, you'll start to see it'll start moving the whole collar, to the point where if I go really big, I can move the whole collar. This is really useful in curving things without having to go into like sculpt mode, that's what I really like it for. So. And so because I want both of these vertices to move over, I'll open my circle a little bit. Not too much to see it's moving that other one, just enough to grab those two. And I'm going to turn proportional editing off.